Hello, everybody. It is I, Aimel, for our third week of our analyst work for the P4G. Already 3 weeks down out of 8 plus playoff. So, after an exciting week 2, let's jump into the matchup of week 3 already. There's nothing else to say. Let's just analyze it. That's what I'm supposed to do. So, for the first matchup, we have Playmore, who came from our after a loss after against Dylan Thomas versus Galvanate, who pick up his first win against Nexus. We know the team. However, there has been some transaction that has been going on for this week, with the Playmore dropping their Avalog to pick up Altaria as their new Terra captain. So, with this change in mind, I'm gonna mention the Altair again because I think it's pretty good here, depending on what he wants it, the role he wants to use. Basically, like Element Mug is a little bit tricky to use if you're not bringing Ore Form, so you can use Altair for it with Terra Steel to be immune to poison while being neutral to Dark, obviously. Or you can just use like a defensive Terra like Flying or Fairy because Flamigo is pretty terrifying to deal with here. And at least either Fairy or Flying makes you resist fighting, but neutral to Flying. But at least Flying means it will be like Brave Bird recoil, so the Flamingo will have to hurt itself to damage Haltara harder. I was also thinking of Tentacruel here as it is a great Primarina check. As superior Psychic that does a lot of damage, but at least can force Prim out potentially. We like also can just knock off or flip turn out of it after this. I also think Serpir has a lot of merit here as a late game sweeper. Once Alan Muck is brought down to low HP, there's no Pokemon immune to grass, so Serpir could afford to potentially even be Choice Scarf if he wants to prevent uh, some potential rescue like Pyroar or Flamigo with Scarf. So you just need to pick its right spot to set up. Like, there's a weakened Prim or Mudsdale, Lycanrod as in Terra into a type that resists, like, just anything weakened at least. I was like Crook here because it's Crocodile. It has some good knockoff. And Quake has to be careful of Cobalion a little bit to not potentially just give it a justified boost. Like if it's like Air Balloon to force the Dark move while being able to ground. I also like Hatterene, which is pretty decent. Again, I've been doing this work kind of late, so don't necessarily have notes for everything. So I'm pretty much just working off memory of what I have. But yeah, I do like it. It's nice into Mazdell that doesn't have heavy slam or even just Cyclozar. And then last, I will go with the Porygon 2. Just again, just a pretty hard Pokemon to remove that isn't like versus Flamigo or like Mux's knockoff. No, that's just what I have for Playmore. Honestly, I just tried to remember what I said for this. But on Nate's side, I didn't mention the Flamigo because of how strong his dual stab is. So I'm not gonna plan him to be like the win con or anything, but rather just a big breaker that could open up Nate's team versus Playmore. Like I also mentioned Primarina is pretty much just cruel. Besides that, you can just hit a lot of Pokemon hard. You can also check like Blaziken a little bit. You just have to be worried about being low HP and then get picked up by like a Thunder Punch or something. So again, not a win con, but at least could potentially trade some damage in. Also the Yellow Muck, like I said, outside of War Form or Terra Steel, all the knockoff with Poison Touch is very obnoxious for Playmore to deal with because Tentacruel, even though it's immune to poison, will take a lot of damage from knockoff and wants to be used for Supreme more than Mug, so there's that. I think also Pyroar is a nice offensive option for Nate as well, because it's pretty much just Porygon 2 and Tentacruel that can take its hit. So again, if it's like versus Tentacruel, you weaken it for Primarina, or Primarina weakens it for Pyroar. If it's Porygon 2, it's a little bit more tricky, but with like a Choice Specs or Terra, it can just overwhelm Porygon 2. Then I did mention the Cobalion, which is nice here for again this Porygon too. Like if you're Spyro, you can force a recover if you're strong enough, then you just bring your fighting type in. Also gives you a strong resist into Rampardos that isn't Terra Ground, or at least if you try to be Shoka or Air Balloon for the time being. Because resist Rampardos is it's not about just walling Rampardos, it's about at least trying to limit its offensive assault. So if you can just stop Rampardos from attacking once, that could be enough to deal with it for most of the time. And then lastly, I'll put Muzdale as an other Pokemon that can do something similar if it doesn't want Cobalion to do this. Since then Muzdale will be Volterra Grass with Trailblaze more. But at least it will get a Defiant. But yeah, overall, I think it's a pretty close matchup. But I'm gonna give it to Playmore, like the slight edge over it because I feel like Nate's best Pokemon doesn't last long compared to Playmore, in my opinion. So that's why I'm going to give it to Playmore. So that's all for the first matchup of the week. Then the second matchup consists of Kyle versus the Shuckle King. Shuckle continuing its winning streak after winning versus Ellie, while Kyle is continuing his losing streak after an unfortunate game versus Uzi. So, for this matchup on Shuckle's side, I think Tauros is a big, big threat for Kyle to deal with, despite having some high physical defense mode like Garg, Bronzong, Weezing, and Pedal Swine. Tauros has a coverage move to hit all of them hard, like you have Close Combat, Throat Chop, Iron Head slash Zen Headbutt. Yeah, it's also with just normal stab in general, it hits very, very hard. And yeah, that's Tauros for you. I also like Period here for its brute strength, being decent into Cerulege as long it doesn't take a Solar Blade in the face. Well, so I could at least like set up rocks if it wants to, just attacking very hard because again, sure you have Pokemon like Weezing and Bronzong, but at least again like Tauros, you have the coverage for them. You have like E Crash for Bronzong, or just fire, or just Temper Flare. I don't remember the weight base powers is Bronzong, but at worst you have Temper Flare. I just don't remember what it is. Then I like Mandibus. Like if you think Rhyperior is a little bit sketchy to use with Cerulege, then you have Mandibus. Cerule's best move is Better Blade, unless you consider Fair Bliss to hit Mandibus, and Mandibus can just fire off a strong foul play into Cerulege. Like Cerulege will need a Will-O-Wisp to weaken the foul play. Yeah, and that's assuming it's not even weak armor, which drops its defense, so it will take even more after the first one. Then I also like Milotic as a way to prevent Arachnid from clicking some strong water type buttons. Like it doesn't do much back, but it's not like Arachnid can do much in the first place. Like some kind of Rocky Helmet variant will just punish Arachnid from just clicking Leash Life and healing itself up. But so like it could also be, or it could just be like a cover cloak to block Garg from Salt Cure. And also like the Gardevoir here, took a while to mention it, but yeah, like usual, it is a strong nuke. There's Bronzong, sure, but again, it all depends on the coverage and depending what Cat wants to use of its wall to try and check whatever. And then last, I'll mention the Smeargle because Smeargle I feel like can do a lot here. There's a lot of Kyle's thing that is naturally slower than it. So it could try to be a very annoying, like again, not mentioning what it can do because this guy is the limit with Smeargle really. If he wants to catch Kyle off guard wearing offensive Smeargle, that's Shuckle's choice. Like we just have to see if he does bring Smeargle what he does. Like there's no point trying to guess what Smeargle will be. Like outside if you wanna guess just Hazard Smeargle with web, Easy Slash or whatever. It, just don't bother trying to predict. It's not worth. And then as for Cal's side, again, Cyrilesh being his best man here also doesn't help much because again you have hard walls like Rhyperior and Mandibus unless you run a specific set, but you can't really afford to run a set for both at the same time, otherwise you just Cyrilesh would be much worse. But that's still his best Pokemon, so not the best present for Cyrilesh in my opinion. But again, it's his best Pokemon, so I have to mention it. Then for the rest, I still like Galarian Weezing. It's not bad to Mandibus. like to trying to punish foul play with some kind of rocky helmet maybe, and also being good to mimic you, and being kinda decent versus Tauros. Like if he wants to, he could be gas so that Tauros takes life or recoil if it's like life or sheer force without having the boost of sheer force if he wants to. Then Bronzong because it's still his best God of War check here. Then you have I think also Bombergio is pretty cool here offensively. Like its dart stat, it's only resisted by Medibuzz and Bisharp. In Medibuzz, you have of course your Rocky payload. So it's pretty much just Bisharp, but at least you're gonna be able to remove the EV life with the knockoff first. So then Bisharp will take a little bit more from later. Or you can just U-turn out of it. Also focus on U-turn, not pruning shot. You don't want to give Defiant to Bisharp. Also like MB Pump here for its B tier over Tauros and being kind of decent. Like sure you have Pokemon like Rhyperior, but I could see Kyle running like a special mix and be pump because it does learn moves like Water Pulse or Grass Knot if he wants to lure Rhyperior with these moves. And then last, I'll still mention Aracanid. Web can be decent if he wants to have it. And again, as long Melodic doesn't have Helmet, Aracanid is can just leech life out of it versus Milotic. But I'm still gonna give it to Shuckle because I feel like it has ways to still check Cal's best Pokemon. It has some strong offensive threat. So I give it to Shuckle. And yeah, that's for the second matchup. Then for the third matchup, it's Thomas versus Seabat. This is actually gonna be the match that I'm gonna feature the replay at the end of the game. So Thomas after his big win versus Playmore. And then we have Siba after his win versus Callum. So for this match, Feraligatr is of course a big threat. It doesn't outspeed everything, but it outspeed a big party of Siba's team naturally. Sure, you have Pokemon like Gastrodon, but then you remember that Feraligatr gets Trailblaze this gen, which sure is doesn't get a speed boost if he runs Sheer Force, but that means the move gets stronger thanks to Sheer Force, so it compensates for being 50 base power. So Gastrodon not really a check to absorb the unless you want to play risky, then draw the Trailblaze for something else. Of course. Next one says Staraptor. Sure, you have something like the NC that is pretty much just one of the better starter checks since it resists both stab without being weak to close combat. But frankly, if that's the case, I just want to see a final Gambit burb. That'll be funny. Like Staraptor has a high HP stat and it doesn't even need investment to have more HP than mass HP DNC. That's when he wants to be no HP Staraptor for the final Gambit nonetheless. Like it's like the offensive Staraptor in case there's no DNC. And then if there's a DNC, you just final Gambit anyway to lure the DNC. Then I'm gonna say Donphan because it's a pretty good Pokemon into the Overquill. It's not terrible if it's Immortal, it has to be worried about taking a triple axle in the face. But it can hit pretty hard, especially if it gets a speed boost from either Rapid Spin or Trailblaze of its own. Then I also like Melota here, a strong special attacker with a like just 3 attacks, so a stab, and then the super effective move on Empoleon, and then whatever last move it wants to have. I also like Tinkaton here. It's a pretty funny thing you can do is by running Mold Breaker with Bulldoze because then you'll be able to target Rotom Heat with a 4 times ground move. It doesn't KO it because the move is weak and so is Tinkaton. And also it's risky because you don't want Empoleon to take the Bulldoze. Sure, the speed drop is nice, it gets offensive, but then you give it a plus special attack boost. But I wanted to mention it because it is pretty funny. It's not every day you get to hit Rotom Heat with a ground move when your name is not Escadrille. And then last, I was originally thinking putting Alolan Golem. Then I don't remember. I forgot why I wanted to mention Alolan Golem. It was when I built for this match for the replay. There was like, dude, how about Leavanny? We haven't seen it yet. It's like Terrafire, so then Rotom Heat cannot Will-O-Wisp you, and then you take like you resist fire instead of being weak, so it's forced to use electric move at best. So it can be like a Lumberry if you want to struggle paralysis from Tidal Wave or Discharge. Like sure you don't kill Overquill, but if you get damage on it, then Leavanny looks a little bit better with like a Leaf Blade knockoff and Terra Blast Fire. I just wanted to mention Leavanny. We haven't seen Thomas use Leavanny yet. And also, I'm mentioning a set that isn't sticky with it. I just straight up mentioning offensive leave any with Swords Dance. And then on Seabat's side, of course, you want DNC for the Star Raptor. Again, there's Final Gambit, but at least I guess you Sartor dies, and so is DNC. And if it's not Final Gambit, then you have DNC in general for a Star Raptor. Then again, Empoleon, I think offensive can shine with an agility set potentially. Like you go your water move, you go grass knot for the gator, and then probably something like ice beam for the Appleton. Then I like him on top here. Offensively, it's not terrible. Like I try to see if an agility set could be good here to just outspeed and just hit everything hard. But I guess I could also see Scarf potentially. Like sure, you're like if you try to be cheeky with max speed and Monta versus a Gator that isn't max speed with Dragon Dance, you could have that. Then I put Overquill. Sure, there's Tinkaton, which is a bit annoying, but you could check Meloetta potentially with an SLFS if you feel like it. You just add your worst into Tinkaton. But at least that would be a decent answer to Meloetta. Then I would just put Ursaring because it's high both with Eviolite. And then last just put Rotom Heat, just like being like okay versus like this stuff like Golem, or as long as it doesn't take a head smash from actually what am I saying? Golem is a rock. I'm just trying to sorry, I'm trying to think of what Rotom he could be good here. In case you haven't noticed, I'm putting this matchup into Thomas's favor. Yeah, so I guess you can see your dribbling. Sure. We saw dribbling doing some wonders week one, so maybe we'll see it again. I don't know. But yes, that's all for this matchup for now. Alright. Pokeyam versus Ellie. Joey continuing its winning streak, whereas Ellie unfortunately got her first loss versus Shuckle. But for this matchup in particular, on Joy's side, Noivern is fighting Rain with a Flame Resist or Jolteon and Terra Electric Clawitzer. AKA, we run Choice Specs Hurricane, and even if Ellie doesn't bring Rain, it still hits hard with also Draco Meteor as well for the potential. Like, if you try to just send Jolteon, just and then bam, Draco Meteor. Like, I best it would be like Spadef Comfy. I know this because I tested with Joey. That was like the best Pokemon I had to take a hit from Noivern, and it was still not great. Especially because it's a Comfy versus in a Registeel Pecharon matchup. And then speaking of Pecharon, yeah, it's pretty nasty. It just comes to a time where Pecharon was the main switch into Eastwind, Coolfish, and Cacturn. Yeah, so much for type disadvantage, am I right? Man, I'm gonna have to mug Joey for 6 more weeks, and this thing is so annoying to deal with. Why is it allowed? Let alone a tier 2. I'm already not having fun. This thing's so broke, and it's so obnoxious to deal with. I'm sorry if you hear the dog in the background. He's very he's a big baby. He just cry a lot. Then I will put the Registeel, which is pretty good into Talonflame if it's in the rain because its fire move will be weakened, but at least you'll be able to survive its flame move better. I wish my dog would just not bark so loud, but he does. Big baby he is. But at least also Registeel provides rock, of course. Also a strong, comfy check. And then I'll put the Quagsire because it is decent into the Volcanion, being immune to water with water absorb while resisting fire. Has to be careful of like a Solar Beam variant with like Fire Spin to trap the Quagsire on the switch. But yeah, besides that, it's okay to it. I wanted to put one of his Terra Captain in the matchup. It was either Flapple or Cloth. They're both very strong in their own right. I put Cloth because we haven't seen it yet over Flapple that we saw week one. So like it can use like Terra Grass with Trailblaze if it wants to be. That like a decent check into Jolteon in Rain. And then last I just put Heracross because it's again a strong Pokemon like Choice Scarf if you want to try to like maybe like Bulky Scarf if you try to revenge kill Lucario with a boost to survive the priority or something. And then on Ellie's side, I put Lucario as one of her stronger hard hitter. That is like maybe it's gonna be more like because special allows it to break Pachyrun better, but it's a little bit much worse because then your priority is Vacuum Wave, which is much worse into Noivern and Rebumby, and potentially Scarf Heracross. Of course, physical can work, but you're gonna need to do something about that Pachyrun because this thing doesn't care about like you can take a hit from Lucario like. Unless you try like Source Dance Clear Amulet to block Pachyrun to just take a hit and then Party Shot out, maybe? That's like the best thing I could say. Then I put Talonflame. Even if Talonflame is used outside of rain, it's still like a good speed tier that is only beaten by Regieleki. Then I put Golurk because it can actually be pretty strong. Like not Pokemon that will stay throughout the match, but if used early, you can try to just break. Like this is the lack of Registeel if you like forcing Comfy or the Pokemon. I also put Iswing Coolfish because for the third week in a row, Joey is fighting a poison dark type while having Pecharunt, which is pretty funny. But he has them out of the way first, and it's not like they beat Pecharunt in under normal circumstances, so it's fine. Then I put Cacturn on as our Terra Catan. We haven't seen Cacturn yet. It could be pretty decent, like, especially if you try like special or like mix Cacturn to make sure you have a strong hit into Pecharunt. Again, I'm making a big deal out of Pecharunt because this one really should have not be allowed. It's absurd. Like it just you cannot kill it. It's just too bulky with such a great typing, and it just yeah it's I love using it in BBR, but I hate using it in Mux for Joey. It's just so obnoxious. Uh, and then last, I put the Volcanion because that's still one of her better Pokemon. Like, if you can deal with Quagsire, then yeah, Volcanion can be good. I gotta put in Joey's side because it has a lot going for him over Ellie. So we will have to see some good prep from Ellie to clutch up versus this. Then the third matchup, Druby and Gravy. Druby, who did Ooze has a little bit rough week two, unfortunately for him. Whereas Gravy fought Joey, and I mean, I just said that Joey won his week two, so yeah. So for this matchup on Droby's side, I think Cleavor is one of his better Pokemon here. The best rock resist he has is the Rodon, which sure is also weak to close combat, but has high physical defense for it with Eviolite. But I still think Cleaver is great. Like maybe like a choice scarf set to get the jump on Raikou, non unburdened Lucha, like DD's crafty, like these kind of Pokemon is nice, especially because you get rocks for Armor Rouge and Lucha. Then I also like Blastoise. Like I'm thinking maybe some kind of like either you go defensive Blastoise, or I would say like Shell Smash physical Blastoise because physical Blastoise can use like Ice Spinner to prevent like Indeedee to just die and then just bring out Lucha with Unburden. You just because you can just Spinner and then remove. That's assuming you can afford to do the play, of course. You don't want to get like I mean you could because you're removing terrain so that expanding force is and not boosted. Then you have to be worried about like an encore if you don't kill Indeedee. Then I put Locust because yes, despite terrain, its priority can still be useful, and it's also just a strong threat with like some powerful knockoff and U-turns. I also like Claude here because you can pretty much do like you can try to be unaware fist death for Lucha if you're very very worried about like Swords Dance. Like you have Poison Jab. As long as you give it, you make sure you can break the sub. In case it's bulky Lucha with Poison Jab, you're fine. I also like Phalanx here as a setup sweeper. Like if he has to pick the right spot, either because of Terra or because of the item, he can do pretty good wonders, I would say. With I believe I thought about Terra Ghost, so that way you can get the super effective move versus Marouche, and just being like Ghost and fighting being pretty strong together. And then last, I will Flygon because it's another ground type. Like if you're worried about Raikou because you want to use Claude for Lucha, then you have Flygon for it. Like sure, there's Scalber that is annoying, I mean, I guess you can just use Claude versus Raikou as well because it's very speed dev. Because Flygo can be pretty strong with some Earthquake return combo, maybe even mixed with a flying move to hit Sinistra. Also, I didn't mention, but Druby is also another player that did transition by dropping Chestnut for Amoonguss. But I don't think Amoonguss is that great here anyway. I mean, it's another Pokemon that can be good versus Raikou, but just like Claude, they just share the same coverage Raikou would use in extrasensory to hit them. And then on Jack's side and Gravy, again, the offensive pairing of Armarouge and Alucha can be pretty deadly if used right at the right time, obviously. I also like the NDD here for the terrain because, like I said, there's a low kicks. I wish I picked a better time to record this, unless you guys are fine hearing a dog and nothing else, because for some reason I don't. For some reason anyway, matchup. Focus on matchup, Aimel. Yeah. Then I did mention the Duraludon. I think it's pretty good, even outside of the trying to take a hit from Cleaver rule. Like, there's a lot of Pokemon that you can just take a hit and just hit hard back. Like, it's pretty much just like Claude. And again, as long as you can pressure Claude, that can be good for Alucha and everything else. Then again, the Raikou, again, pressuring the Claude with some potentially even second terrain boosted extra sensory. And then last, I put the Sinistcha because I put the Sinistcha for what, actually? Uh, I guess I didn't find a better Pokemon to put other than Sinistcha. Like, it can be pretty business bulky for like the likes of Phalanx. You just need to be careful with Terra Ghost. And funnily enough, I put Gravy. I mean, I don't know why I say funnily. Like, I guess in the sense that I didn't explain much for Gravy, but I still think he has the matchup because if plays right, he just overwhelm Druby out of Clodsire. So yeah, I'm gonna go Gravy over Druby. And the one before last matchup is Nexus versus J Ricky. So yeah, we have like Nexus that came after getting his first loss versus Nate, whereas J Ricky continues his winning streak by winning against Joey because of what happens in their game. Not gonna go any further than that. Just focusing on the matchup. If I can just find the matchup, there we go. Yeah. So versus Cherokee on Nexus's side, of course the Entei is pretty decent. Like sure, you have hard walls like Vaporeon, but again, if you're worried about a water type that is a pure water type, you could run some kind of sunny day set. Just try to make yourself stronger. There's also carbing, but you can also burn the carbing, and Kirby's best moves are physical, aka body press. So like unless it's cover cloak, it can be at risk. Anti-Fusion sure can be immune because of Flash Fire, but it's not like it will do much back unless it stays and goes for Eruption that is Flash Fire boosted. But then can just get blown away by Stomping Tantrum because then the fire move will have failed the previous turn, so then Tantrum into Typhlosion. Then I'm gonna mention the Ellen Eggy again. Hopefully that it will in fact be brought because I really do think Eggy is strong. Sure, there's a good draw as a strong special wall, but that's pretty much it. The rest can get destroyed by Eggy on the trick room. Then I also like the Rodon Fan here for its typing. Also potentially be able to weaken Gudra with either Nightshade or Pain Split, like trying to just fight stuff up. But also having a Pokemon that could potentially. I mean, this go is Tornadoes as well. That's what I mean to say. Also, its Air Slash isn't affected by Bramble Gas's ability of a Wind Rider because it's not considered a wind move. And then I put my boss Stiff because again, it's pretty much just Carbank as a good physical wall, which at least will be able to get the stakeout boost versus it. But besides that, it can also be sent on Mesprit as long as it doesn't U-turn. It could be sent on Gligar as well because it's pretty. Like if you trust sub hazards, they can just go. I mean, of course, you can go other Pokemon than just my boss If I just trying to find a place for my boss to be sent. I guess there's also Vaporeon. Like after anti-attack, You can go on Vaporeon, assuming it's not scald. It's like it's very key, but sure. Then I put the Swampert because it gets rocks. Sure, Bramblegas is a bit annoying for it to switch, but Bramblegas has to be worried about switching into a knockoff as well. Also, it's pretty good into Ricky's Typhlosion. Do also be and also into his Gudra as well. And then last, I put the Tauros Paldea Aqua, which again there's the Bramblegas, but as but if Nexus give it coverage to hit it in like teeth, it should be like much better into it because it's fast naturally. So yes, I'm going with this number of Pokemon for Nexus. And then for Jericho's side, again, like previous weeks, the Gudra is so bulky and just strong. Sorry, catching my breath because I'm speaking so much. And then I put Tornadus because it is also pretty strong versus Nexus. It's just the Rotom fan. So it's just like you just weaken it enough just to make sure you don't get like annoyed by Pain Split. Then I also like the Vaporeon as a Pokemon that can be used to check the Entei. Like sure there's the Sunny Day stuff and everything, but at least it can also use Wish to keep itself healthy and the Gudra as well. I also like the Bramble Gas to do the double water to either Lay Spike or just be strong with its dual stab. Again, also Carbink, so if you think that Vaporeon is worried about a Sunny Day set, I cannot speak. Speaking is so hard. I don't mean in just in the English language, but just in general. Speaking is hard. But you can have Carbink potentially, whilst also having rocks if you're not bringing Mesprit. And speaking of Mesprit, I also think it's pretty decent as just a utility, which is almost anything. Like offensive can work, defensive can work. But yeah, not gonna go too much into that. I'll just say I think Jericho has it over Nexus. So again, we'll see tomorrow if I'm right or wrong. And then for the last matchup, it's Callum versus Uzi. Callum going from a second loss after his fight versus Seabad, whereas Uzi got his first win versus Kyle last week. And for this week in particular, on Callum's side, Mienshao can be pretty strong. Like the best Pokemon to take it on are like other likes of Okidogi, Slowking, and Sanakona, but you can just be like a U-turn bot pivot or just knock off Spider if you're able to just keep the position right. I also like Skeledirge here. Like it's not terrible into Okidogi per se, but you have to be worried about getting knockoff or even just Toxic Chain. But besides that, it can spread some burns relatively easy because Delphox has to be worried about Shell Ball for big damage. Revavroom is a terrifying shift gear sweeper if you position it correctly. It's pretty much just send a counter that can take its hits at best, but it could get robbed by an Iron Head flinch, or if it's just too low on HP to just check at this point, or even worse, if Revavroom manages Rise to become immune to ground and send a counter that doesn't have glare for some reason, that could be a problem for Uzi. Next, Lapras, and we just pile on the offensive setup sweeper with the Lapras, which I think is pretty strong with Terra Ground, especially because it gives it a stronger move with what it already has, like a Liquidation, Icicle Spear, Earthquake. Then I would say Shaman is pretty decent. Like it's not awful per se, but it can have some decent utility, like either with Leash Shield or just Healing Wish to bring up Vroom or Lapras again. Can be great. And then last, I'll put the Pheasant Deputy because Callum's team is a little bit scared of Kilowatt Roll in terms of flying resist because it's just room to flying resist, which doesn't have great speed F. And Pheasant is the greatest special bulk Callum has versus Pheasant versus Kilowatt Roll. And then last, Uzi's team. Again, I said that Kilowatt Roll is hits very hard, so as long as it hits its move, it will be able to hit Callum very hard. which is a sentence that makes absolute sense. I just repeat the same thing. But what do you want me to do? I'm just trying to record this and get it done. So, so yeah. Then next, Okie dokie, break into me and Shao. It can be very annoying, even versus the lack of skeletons, like I mentioned. Like it could be useful for Vroom technically, but Vroom gets sent headbutt, so Oki has to be worried of that, especially because if it gets knocked up, it cannot be like used with a Pyalpha berry. Then I'll put Grim Snarl. Like it could be like some kind of like either Thunder Wave or like Trick Lagging Tail if he wants to neuter one of Callum's Self Sweeper or just Self Screens. He wants to because his Dark type is Hunch Crow, so he has to be deadly worried about switching into Grim Snarl just to get hit by a fairy move. Then I like to send the counter because again, it could be good for a rare room. Yeah, sure, shift gear may rise means less coverage, but you are never too secure about everything. So at least having the combination of earthquake and glare should be enough to deal with room. Then I also like Hunter for his strong Shadow Ball. Again, it's just Hunchcrow as a resist, so it's frail, so it gets hit hard by a Terra Ghost Shadow Ball. And then last, I put the non-spars as a general, just like special tanks for the likes of Skeletorch and Shaman. And I think with this, it's probably the closest matchup for this week. It's not the closest because on one hand you have Callum that has some terrifying self sweeper for versus Uzi, but Uzi also has some good weapon of its own to at least neuter the self sweeper. Like if they don't sweep, I feel like Uzi has the upper hand. So I think I'll go with it. Yeah, it's pretty much just it's really one of the other, which is the case for everybody. But I feel like this one is really one of the closer match. So pretty much the match I'm gonna look up for the most. And of course, before ending this week, the replay that I've made of both team for Thomas and Seabat specifically for this week. Again, means nothing. It's just what I my theory analysis goes, and we just look how it went. So this is how it went. An Overquill lead versus Staraptor. Then you go DNC because school is -1. But then bam, final gambit. DNC is dead. It's 5v5 immediately. Then we go Tinkaton into the Rotom. And weekly Bulldoze because we are Moldbreaker. It's just too weak to be actually meaningful. We get overheat, but because it's a defensive Rotom, it has no investment, so it doesn't kill Tinkaton. So we just bolt it again, because sure. And then we just kick it on the hammer, hitting Ursaring hard. But then we die, but at least we can Ursaring, so we go leave Vanny. And we're gonna set up that Swords Dance. And then we're gonna Terra Fire. And you also Terra Blood that does not even half to Overquill because it's bulk Overquill. We get crit by Barbarage because it happened. Then bam, other Terra Blast, but it's Stitcher's Berry. But then bam, Barbarage, still no poison. Lucky me. Terra Blast finish off the Overquill. And then Himlock comes in, and it was in fact Scarf him on top. Funnily enough, I brought Cell Battery Leavani, but the idea is that if I get hit by Volt Switch, I get to +3 attack. Pretty funny. And then Gator comes in, clicks the B liquidation button because there's no water resist outside of Empoleon. Then goes Rotom, into the predicted electric move, then goes into Meloetta on the fire move like Will-O-Wisp, because we are special Meloetta. We fire off an Hyper Voice, and we are Throat Spray Meloetta to get a special attack boost out of it. We take nothing from Overheat thanks to our special defense being naturally high, and we finish the Rotom Heat. Here comes the Empoleon. The agility step can be dangerous, especially with weakness policy. That doesn't matter because our Dom fan is actually still full HP, so we still have this 13 nonetheless. So we can just go Gator instead and with Earthquake, and then kill our Serene with the addition. A pretty short match with in my head, basically, because that's of course not the real match, but just how an example of how the match can go if this is how it happens. Like it's not, I'm not the real coaches, but I always like to win these replays because it's funny. Because I just pinch my ideas for each side into each other and just see how it goes. But yeah, that's our analysis work done for this week. And yeah, there's nothing else to say. It's victory is done. We're gonna be all halfway through the season. Forward for next week. So yeah, thank you guys for just listening to me babbling or something that it's not like it matters anything. It's just fun work for me to do. But on that, I will talk to you guys for next week. See ya, everybody. Goodbye.